Hey guys, Canfo.com is officially live now. Go get your official Canfo merch. The first 50 orders will be shipped within 24 hours, so make sure to be one of the first 50. Don't worry, the rest of the orders will be shipped very quickly as well. We wanted to focus on quality, so we worked really hard on this. Go to Canfo.com today to get your order.
A lot of people think the United States that you grew up in is currently being destroyed, but what does that mean? When you destroy a nation, of course, you destroy the people within it. And you start with the weakest because they're the easiest to crush. So it's worth hearing their stories just so you know what's happening and what may be coming. We're interested in hearing more today from a man called Jacob Chansley. You may know him as the QAnon Shaman. He became pretty famous in the national media right after January 6, 2021. Jacob Chansley's story is pretty simple. He's a veteran, American-born, a patriotic guy who became convinced after the 2020 election that democracy had ended, that the election had been stolen. And so with thousands of other people, he went to Washington to exercise his constitutional rights of protest. And he wound up in the Capitol building. He was unarmed. He didn't threaten anyone. He never showed any sign that he wanted to commit violence. But he was arrested, defamed, and then sent to prison. What's interesting is that it was only about 2 years later that we found out exactly what Jacob Chansley did inside the U.S. Capitol.
The video.
He was, and the tape shows this unequivocally, led into the Senate chamber by uniformed law enforcement.
We've seen that.
They showed him how to get in. They opened the door for him, and they ushered him into the room.
They took pictures.
Now, we don't know the names of those uniformed law enforcement personnel. They have never been tried or convicted of anything. They've never been charged. We don't even know if they've ever been questioned.
Wow.
They got away scot-free. Jacob Chansley's life was destroyed. But again, it was years before we knew that. In the meantime, the national media, acting in concert with the Biden administration, decided to make an example of Jacob Chansley. They denounced him as the QAnon Shaman. They screeched about how he was a personal threat to democracy and that anything that happened to him, any punishment that happened to him, was well-deserved. Here's a selection.
In his horned helmet, fur pelts, and face paint, Jacob Chansley became known as the QAnon Shaman.
The QAnon Shaman.
The QAnon Shaman.
The QAnon Shaman.
We also probably shouldn't be using the word shaman, given that that is culturally significant for some people, and this was just a rioter in a hat.
The public face of the Capitol riot.
Public face of the insurrection.
The face of the insurrection.
The most prominent symbol of a violent insurrection that attempted to overthrow the United States government.
Chansley stormed the building with his face painted while wearing a fur helmet and horns.
Who stormed the Capitol on January 6th.
Who stormed the Capitol. Stormed the Capitol on Insurrection Day.
Jacob Chansley is not convicted of a violent crime. And so the judge still believes, however, that the
So let's say these people were a little slightly rowdier than, you know, people that was protesting for Palestine. The people that came inside, was that actually the Capitol that they did that?
Yeah, they did that in the
state capitol.
Yeah, the state capitol.
And this was in Virginia.
This was
Washington, D.C.
Washington,
bro.
D.C. District of Columbia. Yes. I mean, it's borders.
Yeah. Okay.
The United States Capitol.
To think that it's a little different, but to think that some people
it's way different.
It is. It definitely is. But I don't think that this should lead to jail time, especially because they were let through.
The sentences they're getting is crazy. People are getting 20 years.
They were let through.
Y'all know what's
the
crazy?
man who shot his wife got 10.
Y'all know the Black Panther Party did it in California.
Crazy.
This doesn't add up. But let's go to. He's on here. Let's go. Let's hear from the man himself.
The Black Panther Party did it in California.
It just doesn't. Guns. Okay. All right. See, now it does look bad right there. I did forget that. But it's just like
they were so happy when this happened, bro. 20 years in jail for that.
Oh, definitely not.
They said we need this.
Okay, I think at the worst, the hardest punishment should have been like 4, 5.
Because he was standing up for his rights, you know. So
house
like,
arrest,
yeah,
probation.
like maybe like okay, at
Not
the
even
most,
have
5. I would
probation.
say, but like maybe a 6 months to a year or 2 for this guy.
I don't even think a year. That's still excessive. He didn't
House
break. He didn't
arrest,
hurt anybody.
probation.
Nobody was injured.
They walked him in there.
This is a victimless crime.
It is. It
Literally.
is. Wow. But
Like the Nancy Pelosi dude, he deserved what
They
he
put
got.
his feet on the desk and took the envelope.
And he took the envelope.
He is still wrong, but what's insane is if I could say if he barged through it and did something very corrupt and illegal, slipping through, you know.
So
like
what was so wrong about this? They walked him in it.
Yeah, that's what's crazy.
That's like they gave him a visit and a tour around there.
Yeah, that's what's crazy.
They said, yeah, this where they vote at. This the button they press.
Now, I can see if he snuck in and did some wild stuff that was very illegal, but the fact that they walked him in and he got multiple years in jail is just crazy to me.
What Vivek said, that's called entrapment. Entrapment.
Yeah.
This is a real life entrapment right here.
Yeah.
With a violent act.
Make no mistake, Chensley is a stone cold thug.
What does the DOJ hope to gain by throwing the book so aggressively at Jacob Chansley 4 years?
Well, in a word, respect.
Compared to many of the defendants in federal court, this is an exceptionally bad dude.
The amazing thing about the whole thing is watching the video, and on the Senate floor, there's a cop who's armed, and a guy bursts in, the QAnon shaman, dressed like a Viking, and he basically talks to him. I'm watching. Shoot him. Yeah. Shoot him. Like, if you burst into the United States, if he was dressed like Bin Laden, would you have shot him?
Shoot him. That man is called Steve Schmidt. He's a longtime political flack. He spent years being paid to lie for John McCain. He's now being paid by Democratic donors and oligarchs to lie on behalf of the Biden administration in permanent Washington. But that sentiment, the one he just expressed in the tape, is absolutely real. Shoot him. Now, if he'll encourage the murder of Jacob Chansley, why wouldn't he do the same to you? Well, of course, he absolutely would. And it's worth, as you think about that, to consider what Jacob Chansley actually did. He was not committing insurrection. He was not armed. He was in no sense violent. But don't take our word for it. Here's some of the tape. Watch.
Let's go. Thank you. Come on, let's go.
He's a thug.
They took everybody out for him.
Some good footage, sucker.
Thank you for your patience. We really appreciate it.
God bless you guys. Thank you for your patience. We really appreciate it.
Didn't
God
they say a
bless
prayer in there
the men
too?
in blue. That's
sure
what
they said
Jacob
a prayer in
Chansley
there.
said. And for that,
blew
Steve
my
Schmidt,
mind.
who
Where'd
gets
all these
paid by
body footages
oligarchs to
come from
lie,
now?
thinks he should be murdered. It's worth, we thought, talking to Jacob Chansley himself, the man at the center of this story, the man whose life has been destroyed by liars like Steve Schmidt. Where is he now? What's he doing? And what does he think of what happened to him? Jacob Chansley joins us now. Jacob Chansley, thanks so much for coming on. So you, I think,
Thank
tried
you for having me.
it's
great to be here.
Of course. You knew, of course, that you were led into the chamber by law enforcement and that you prayed for them once you were inside. What was it like hearing people like Steve Schmidt call for your murder, knowing what you did about what actually happened?
Well, for me, given that I understand now, especially that January 6th was a deep state setup and a deep state psyop that ensued afterward, I'm not surprised. That's what these people do. The whole media apparatus, what I call the Mockingbird media, and the government are in lockstep.
But how frustrating was it? I mean, you may have been in prison when he went on Bill Maher and said that you should be shot to death for being led into the Senate chamber. But how frustrating was it to hear that he and so many other people saying the same thing on behalf of the government when you knew it was all a complete lie?
Well, to be perfectly honest with you, because I understand the depths of government corruption and the Mockingbird media's corruption, it was par for the course. And I didn't take it personally because I knew that all they'd done is dehumanize me. But this is what the propaganda in the Mockingbird media does, is they dehumanize people, they caricaturize people to fit their narrative. And that's that's PSYOP 101, Tucker.
Yeah, but these are human beings, and you're an American citizen and a veteran, and you did nothing wrong. So, I mean, you don't sound frustrated by it. Perhaps you've reached a Zen level of acceptance. I don't know. But it's a little shocking, isn't it?
This is scary.
Well, not when you understand what the deep state is and how they operate. So, with that said, if you like, I'd like to bolster what it is that I said when I say that the January 6 events was a deep state setup and a deep state psyop by describing what the deep state is in about 2 minutes, if that's okay.
Well, I hope you will.
Okay. So The Founding Fathers described or characterized tyranny as the consolidation of all three branches of government into a centralized power: executive, legislative, and judicial. Now, when we talk about the deep state, what we're talking about is a tyrannical government. But the deep state is comprised of three aspects. Number one, the first aspect is the circumventing of the checks and balances portions of our three-branch government system. If you corrupt the checks and balances portions, you don't need to corrupt the whole system, just the checks and balances that keep the centralization of power from happening. Right. So this is done through blackmail, bribery, lobbying, etc. Now, the other aspect to the deep state, the second aspect, is the bureaucracy. Now, the bureaucracy is comprised of over 500 federal regulatory agencies that are charged with regulating commerce. Now, these bureaucratic agencies are in effect writing law by writing the regulations that tell us what we can buy, what we can sell, what is legal and what is illegal. So that's legislative. They also have their own regulation enforcement agents that enforce their regulations on the American people. So that's executive. And they have their own administrative courts that are outside of the federal court system. So that's judicial. So that's tyranny. Nice. And now the third aspect of the deep state is the international corporations and the international banking cartels that have either blackmailed our congressmen or bureaucrats into submission, or they, through bribery and lobbying, they have written the regulations for the bureaucracy to then enforce. So then in this sense, the international corporations and banking cartels are using the government's monopoly on the initiation of force to reinforce their monopolies over our resources, our labor, and our currency. And they are using the government's monopoly on the initiation of force to take our tax dollars, public money, and put it into the private hands of less than 1% of the population. Now, that being said, they use psyops to ensure that we're fighting amongst each other and we don't understand or agree upon how it is that this tyrannical government has taken over the country and is forcing our compliance.
Damn.
Now, I'm sorry. I have to say, I was told you were crazy.
They gonna hit him with that
because
bro.
You wore
That's
Viking
some
horns.
crazy shit to say.
No, okay,
he said some crazy stuff. Yeah, he's like very.
No, let's
crazy. But I spent my life in Washington, and I don't know what you're going to say next. But what you just said is
we're fighting amongst each other, and we don't understand or agree upon how it is that this tyrannical government has taken over the country and is forcing our compliance.
Now, I'm sorry. I have to say, I was told you were crazy. And because you wore Viking horns, I thought maybe you were crazy. But I spent my life in Washington, and I don't know what you're going to say next, but what you just said is true. That is absolutely true. That's not crazy. True, by the way, you described it really well. I've seen it firsthand. And I'm just kind of amazed.
No. He just went crazy. He just broke it down.
So the question then becomes,
they just bought and paid for
what can we do about it?
Unless we get our money
That's
up,
why Vivek always says, I don't know what that company's called. Is it Black? Or what does he say? Is it Black?
Black. They own everybody. They invested in everybody.
It is Black. Those are the
but that's not a bank. That's an investment firm.
Yeah, same thing. Bank investment firm. People are investing their money into something, and it's making the executive, legislative, and the judicial branch system corrupt.
Yeah, they just said there's a bunch of different levels of bribery and putting people into submission to push their narrative. Is basically what he said. It says 3 different levels. He said one of the first levels was blackmail bribery. So they paid black people to go on TV and say shit to push their narrative to get other black people to agree. Is that what he was meaning?
You know what blackmail? Blackmail.
Oh, blackmail.
Yeah. Like blackmail. You fucked me up.
Wrong blackmail. I'm thinking he meant blackmail, like a black dude. But he meant blackmail, like blackmail. He got dirt on you. Yeah, that's what. That's what I was so confused. I was like, damn, they're saying black people.
I was just saying, damn, you got deep in that, man.
On a serious note, though, when he said would take a long time to break down, he said a ton.
He just saying people getting bought up in different
he did. He went down and
a
said
lot of people are being bought and paid for and blackmailed and into submission.
But they're getting the blackmail.
And they tried to call this guy crazy.
I mean, I can see why if you're brainwashed and someone comes to you with this and you just believe everything you're spoon fed and you haven't done your own research, why you would think this is crazy.
Nah, this might actually be. I can see why YouTube wouldn't want this video.
We fell in their submissions.
I was thinking there, but hey, hopefully,
this one right
don't
here,
block this, y'all. Don't block this, YouTube.
YouTube,
don't block this.
I will not be surprised.
But wow, man, yeah, the guy's definitely not crazy. He sounds like a smart, articulate guy. You know,
I think he sounds intelligent.
He just really knew what was going on at the period of time. Like, I don't know what made him think.
Bro,
the election got stolen.
2.5 years in jail.
You know?
Hey, y'all was just,
like, how could you really come to that conclusion without knowing? It's kind of like he kind of went with his gut. He didn't have any facts behind that. You know,
he just broke it down. I guess he figured it out, man.
Hey,
that's insane.
If Biden win, look like
round
part.
Oh man, all right, guys. Let's know what y'all think about this guy. He's definitely not crazy, guys.